Dank je. Dank je voor de introductie. En het allerbelangrijkste, ik kom gewoon, u staat. Software voor AI, AI voor software. Ik denk dat ergens in de translation iets fout gegaan is, want de tweede software stond in de titel opeens met een kleine s. Waarom dat nou is, weet ik ook niet. Misschien is dat minder belangrijk. Even kort iets over mezelf. This is the puzzle of my life. I just realized that I should speak English. This is the puzzle of my life. And it's a puzzle, you can see. It's not completed yet, and I think that's for everyone here. And the good thing is that you don't know when it will be completed, right? That's also important for your life. So what is the puzzle of my life? Well, it's actually a few things I wanted to highlight. I spent a considerable time at the beginning of this century, sounds very old, but it's from 2000 to 2011 at the Nut Lab in Philips. Who knows the Nut Lab? It's no longer there anymore. Hey, great. Was a wonderful place. I started as a scientist with a lot of liberty, and I ended as a vice president with zero liberty. So that was maybe not a good thing about it, but okay, it was fun. Then I moved on and I went to the European Institute of Innovation and Technology. Who heard about that? Oops. Okay. Well, anyway, it's a kind of pan-European innovation institute with all kind of locations all over the place. I worked there also for about a decade, and then I moved on to what I do today, and that's I'm the chairman of the board of AINet. AINet is another 200 million where we can play around to fuel AI innovation in the Netherlands and education as well. I'll come back to that later as well. All those jobs I'm able to keep them for about 10 years. The only job that I'm able to keep much longer, that's my university professorship, which I do more than 25 years at Twente University. And the topic of my research is and has always been secure data management. And the lesson you can learn from here, it's easy to keep a job at the university. Sorry, Niels, nothing personal. So let's move on. AINet, so what do we do in the Netherlands? We have a large ecosystem that has been built up over the past 5 years, I think, and that's called here on the right, the Dutch AI Coalition. And the Dutch AI Coalition has around 500 members from all different areas of society. There are universities, there are companies, there are startups, there are NGOs, the governments are represented. So it's really a broad ecosystem. That ecosystem has given rise to several activities that we see in the Netherlands. And by far the largest activity is the AINet program. As I said, it's a 200 million injection from the Dutch Growth Fund. We got it just before it closed, so we are the lucky ones. And that money is complemented by around 150 million of private investment. So it's a considerable amount of money that we can play with in the coming years. What we did recently, and maybe some of you are even involved. So who is involved in a learning community or innovation lab that was just granted by the AINet? A few. Okay, but I see I have a lot of prospect members of the organization, so sign up afterwards. We invested 50 million. Altogether, that brings the total investment that we did with the program in the last 3 years to 120 million, and that's about a third of the investment we can do. So there's 240 to go. And if you missed the earlier rounds, please check out and make sure you join the party. We also work on thought leadership, foresight, how are things developing? And one of the things we did in collaboration with my previous employer, built a report on the European struggle with generative AI. You can find it on the website, have a look at it. If you're there anyway, you will see a whole series of those reports. There are 9 in total. And yesterday, I actually drove back late in the evening to be on time here this morning for the breakfast, which started at 8:15. And that was the publication of the most recent report on agri-tech. And I think being here in this region, agri-tech is also an important topic. So you might be interested in the report. These two organizations represent the largest ecosystem in the Netherlands on AI and the largest program. If you have army without money and money without army, what do? You bring them together. That's what we will do. And as of the 1st of January, these organizations will be known under the new name of the AI Coalition. There is the logo in the middle for the Netherlands. And please join us, because you are the ones that make the true innovation happen. So please join us. Okay, let's have a look at cars and software. I show you a picture of the investments in R&D on the three main continents that we have in the world: Europe, Asia, and the US. And look at two colors here, the blue one and the yellow one. The blue one represents investments in R&D in the car industry. The yellow one represents investments in R&D in software. So this was 10 years ago, and this is more or less a few years ago, how this is divided. And what you see is that in Europe we invest a lot of money into car research, and that's why our car industry is doing so well. Oh, okay, we'll come to that. The others think that software is more important, so they put a lot of money there, but we think that that is a mistake, so we keep it very low. So what is actually going on in this car industry? This is the way that the German car industry is advertising their cars. Freude am Fahren. Who drives a BMW here? Nobody? I thought software industry was paying well, but okay. Go to your boss, ask for an increase. And they talk, no. They talk about big cars, right? So it took us 55 years to get this big. So cars is about driving fast, being big, and so on. How do American and Chinese vendors sell their cars? Tesla, you don't even see the car. You see how the car is perceived from the user. The car is about building dreams. It's about being good for the environment. It's a complete different way of looking at cars. And actually, if you look, the European vision on cars, it's a machine that provides you a driving experience. Max Verstappen, wow. Its software is focused on improving the machine. We'll get to that. And BMW and Volkswagen are really true car companies. For Elon Musk, a car is just an intelligent special purpose robot that has to bring you from one place to another, preferably by not disturbing you so you can continue to read your newspaper. Complete different vision on what a car is. The software is focused on supporting the user experience. And Tesla doesn't call itself a car company, it's a data company, it's a robotics company, it's a company that is focused around software. How funny. But that's how it looks. Are we good at software as well? Of course. Of course we're good at software. We use it to improve the machine or fake the authorities. But don't think that software in the US is all great. There's also the accidents with software. So software remains something very special to handle and to handle with care. What does it do, these different views, with your stock price? If you bought 5 years ago a share of BMW for €1, you would get €1.05 in return today. If you would do it for Volkswagen, you would get 50 cents back. What a pity. And if you would have done it for Tesla, you would have gotten around €1,100 today. So that's what it does. And if we look at Volkswagen, it took them 55 years to get that big and only 3 years to halve their share price. Not bad. And who read the newspapers last week? It's not only the car industry itself, but the whole ecosystem is affected by these issues. 5,000 people, 5.5, 50 more even, going out, and most of them in the software division. If there's one thing and one lesson that people should take from this, and especially the policymakers and the people that spend our precious taxpayers' money on investments, that Europe should significantly step up here. En Nederland ook. Kortom, op de barricades, jongens. So let's go to AI. Where are we in AI? Okay, I think what we have behind us is beating Go players and chess players. And we are now somewhere around artificial general intelligence. Are we completely there? Well, whoever used any large language model knows the answer is no. And are we ever going to arrive at HAL 9000? Who thinks yes? Who thinks within 10 years? I think as well. It goes very fast. It goes extremely fast. Okay, so from a software perspective, look at AI systems. It's about algorithms, it's about data processing, it's about communication, it's about software and hardware, architecture, security, dependability, optimization. We know all that, right? So AI and software is business as usual. Do you think so? Yeah? Who thinks so? Business as usual. Fortunately, only a few. I try to convince you that's not the case. Who has ever, during its studies, had to solve this problem? If not, you have to leave now. Okay. If you do this in Python, you get a lovely piece of code. And it's exploiting recursion, and it's actually expressing a very simple rule. If you have to bring n disks from one pin to the other, you bring n minus 1 to the middle pen, you move them from the middle pen to the other, and then you shift the last one. And it's very elegantly expressed. But of course, AI does things a lot better. So let's try it with AI. Very elegant expression here on the screen. You need a Q matrix for the moves, and you need a reward matrix, and then you need about 100 or 1,000 iterations, and then it finally finds out how to do this job. But from then on, it moves very well. What's the minimum number of moves that you can reach for n disks? No? Go back to your study books. N square minus 1. So for 2 disks, n square minus 1, I will do the computation then, that's 4 minus 1 is 3. And that's exactly where the system gets at. And if you go to a few disks more, it takes a bit longer for training, because it's more difficult. And then you get there as well. And then you are, of course, at 15 moves. 4 square, 16 minus 1, 15. Okay? So software and AI is definitely not business as usual. Let's look at the 2 dimensions that I mentioned in the title. On the one hand, you have software for AI. And the first thing you have to think about is the architecture. And how do I embed, for example, in the case of generative AI, large language model into my software architecture? I'm not going to explain all this because that's more for a course at the university, but it gives you the picture that the crucial place where you can put the foundation model is at the center of the universe. And that's where these guys like to be. But it makes your application also extremely dependent on these large language models. And of course, today they are for free. The first shot is also for free. And once you get addicted, you start paying. Be aware. The other thing is, of course, the whole situation around how the software engineering itself is going to work. Who is using LLM ops at the moment? Oops, a few, only a few. Okay, a lot of work to do here. Yeah. And if you look where the focus is there, is that you see you had traditional ML ops. You have, of course, ops that concentrate on the foundation model itself, and then you have the application of the specific LLM in your application. Model training, very important. Anybody involved in model training here? A few here and there. One thing you need for model training is a lot of hardware. A lot of hardware, unfortunately, we don't have here. So we're working on getting a better hardware environment and a testing environment for large language models in the Netherlands. And there's actually a program going on, and we hope to be able to get such a infrastructure and applying for it in the context of the European high performance computing framework in the beginning of next year. And if we are lucky, it might even end up here. And then there's one thing that is probably the most decisive when it's about developing AI applications, and that's regulation. Because many applications will be scrutinized seriously by the authorities according to their risk level. And if you are at the top, normally you're very happy. If here you are at the top, you're out of business. So don't get at the top in this one. And make sure you have minimal impact of this regulation. Let's look at the other side, AI for software. This is about the kind of AI tools that software engineers are used according to this thing which took place in the summer. Maybe it's changed already completely. But you see that a lot of engineers just use ChatGPT. And of course, there is a lot of use of GitHub Copilot in this domain as we speak. I pick out a few things which I think are important. Refactoring is an area that can benefit largely from AI, especially also when you look at legacy. So legacy is a nightmare. Huh? So there's a lot of code is still written in COBOL. I once was at the advisory committee at SAP, you know SAP, the German software company. And they wanted to redo part of their R3 system. And their software engineers refused to do the re-engineering because they said, we will get sacked if this thing goes wrong. So it's an extremely serious problem. Testing gets a whole new dimension when you throw in large language models. Who is applying them in testing right now? Any of you? Okay, already more. You have buggy software or what? And then finally, an area that I like myself, because secure data management is what I do in Twente. I apologize for that. I would have loved a position here, but they didn't want me, so I get to Twente and got a position there. Just joking. And this is the kind of things you do. Do you know the MITRE framework? Who knows the MITRE framework? Yes, some of you do. And what's very much about, it's kind of a catalog where you see all kind of vulnerabilities and weaknesses, and you have to trace those vulnerabilities, see what are the weaknesses that are relevant for your system, and then you can see what kind of attack path you can expect, and then of course you can prepare against those attacks. That's roughly what is going on. And mapping this enormous amount of the vulnerability information to the weaknesses for your specific application is a bit of an art. And one of my PhD students, together with Cisco, we are working on finding solutions for that to make it sharper so you can better prepare on future possible attack paths. And that's a serious improvement. He did some work, but the improvements are still very little because we got from a precision from 70 to 75. So he probably has to do a little bit more for his work before we can graduate him, because we need above 90, right, to make it serious. I want to close a bit off with a discussion about ecosystems. Who recognizes this ecosystem? Not too many. It's the Eindhoven Brainport ecosystem. And it took me half a minute to get this picture. And it's a very strong ecosystem in the Netherlands. But it's an ecosystem of equipment makers. All these companies you see there, DAF makes equipment, NXP makes equipment, very small equipment of course, VDL makes equipment, Philips makes equipment, ASML makes equipment, it's all equipment makers. It's not a software environment, it's an equipment making environment. But it's a very good environment, it's very strong. ASML is I don't know the exact valuation at the moment, but it was one of the most valuable companies in Europe. So I tried to find the same picture for the software ecosystem in the Netherlands. And it took me about 15 minutes to get this slide together. And the main lesson here is there are a lot of companies, but there is not an integrated, strong ecosystem with sub-suppliers, with people that work together, and so on. It's very fragmented for different reasons. And that is hindering the development of software. In the Netherlands, in Europe, you see a similar picture. This is a writing on the wall. If you want to go towards a strong software system, You have to look outside Europe, and you find them. And those guys have discovered one thing, that data is the new oil. And you can get very rich from other people's data. That was a joke we had at Philips as well. Open innovation is all about doing your innovation with other people's money. They understood that very well. That's what they are doing, right? And if we look here, we have two issues. The first issue is the fragmentation. And the second issue we have a lot of common interests, but we have hardly common goals. I like flying, and I share that with a lot of people. They like to fly drones, they like to fly helicopters, they like to fly planes. Common interest, great evenings, talk a lot, drink good beer, have great evenings. But nothing is achieved. If we have a common goal, we're going to build a plane together. You will do the wings, I do the engines, you do the instruments, and there we go. Then you also have a lot of fun, but also some results at the end. That's an important difference. Important to do that. So let's look at these great guys. They're using it like oil. And how do oil companies handle oil? Well, they spill it from time to time. There are some pipelines in some countries that are leaking or whatever. But it's not a problem. There is a ship sinking from time to time, but you can clean it up. It's all manageable. So is data really oil? Do you recognize data like this? I don't think so. I think data is much more like plutonium. Because if you spill a drop of data, if there is identity fraud on your identity, you can have a hard time for years to come. So data is much more explosive than just oil. And maybe there is an opportunity. Maybe there is an opportunity for us to get away from this dirty oil handling of data towards a clean nuclear handling of data. And what is a key ingredient and an emerging field with this respect is how do we protect our AI systems? I'm not going through all the pillars, but you see that if you handle data really with care, then you have to take measures. You cannot do that the way the others do. And building an oil refinery is something completely different than building a nuclear plant. So there is an opportunity. Don't try to copy big tech in the US. Try to do something different, which has a future and is not polluting like it was in the past. And AI regulation is on your side. And of course, Elon Musk has luck. For 4 years, he can still go his way. But in the long run, it will not be that direction that we are going. Not with the planet, and also not with the data management. Take the opportunity and look a little bit further out than the next elections. I say this to politicians as well, but they don't listen. Let's look here at the north. I painted a little bit a SWOT of this area here. I think the knowledge institutes are great here. We have innovative SMEs. We have a great quality of life. But we have a lack of big tech. We have a lack of private investments. And we have a lot of fragmentation here. The amount of groups, the number of different groups I see, even in the digital environment, it's huge. And the one calls them no, and the other says, well, that's not our party. We call ourselves yes. Doesn't look very collaborative from The Hague, right? Think about that. Strengthen by showing unity rather than differentiation. What are the opportunities? Public investment. Sinterklaas komt eraan. Hij heet Nijbegun. So there is a lot of money coming, but spend it wisely. Don't just do the usual things. You have the opportunities. You have also threats, a talent and startup outflow. We have a lot of talent here. How do we keep it here? How do we make sure it's an interesting place, not only for leisure with a good quality of life, but also a good quality of work, where you are together with other talented people. That is what motivating people. So if you put that all together and you bring this to the bestuurders here, they will say, great idea, Willem. We are very good in public institutions here. We will make sure we get the Department of LLM protection here. A government department and so on. Is that what will make the region change? Don't think so. What we need is this. We need companies. We need to build a strong economy in this domain. That's my message. One more thing, if you allow me, Mr. Chairman. One more thing. Responsible AI, very important. People are very much concerned about AI and democracy. And if I have to visualize two important threats to AI and democracy, and apparently they are good friends, American big tech and populist politicians. And indeed, if you hear them talking, foundation models hallucinate. Populist politicians from time to time as well. They like to spread fake news or use the tools to create fake news. They like to manipulate. Is that what we want? No. So AI doesn't change old wisdom. And old wisdom is ask the right questions, but fact-check the answers. Please do. And of course I did a fact-check, because I went to Grok and I said, how is this relation now? Thank you.
Thank you. Please give it up for Willem Jonker.